Back in 1988, Mike Pondsmith created a tabletop role-playing game similar to Dungeons & Dragons, but set in the future and based in our own world. And then in December 2020, the highly anticipated title was finally released. Developed by CD Projekt Red and partners with Mike Pondsmith himself, they created a faithful adaptation of the tabletop game. Well, the wasteful youth can thrive in this futuristic setting where corporate overlords have taken over the world. Welcome to NightCity. In this first-person shooter role-playing game, you can choose between 3 different backgrounds and multiple classes as the player can create the appearance of their own character, named V. After the intro and the player gets settled, you'll be thrown into the criminal underbelly of NightCity. And in the middle of the heist, things escalate, and to not leave empty-handed, the player decides to insert the chip into their cybernetics. This completely reworks their software as the player dives into madness, feeling like a new identity is coming to take over and possess their mind. Now V is being controlled by the legendary rebel leader Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves. Back from the dead, you'll pick up jobs and gain respect as you climb the social ladder of NightCity. And Johnny Silverhand will guide you through the story as you discover his past and the mysterious ties that it has with the corporate overlords that have taken over the world. And many references from characters and events from the tabletop game will make their appearance, like Atom Smasher and the Arasaka Corporation. And while V may not feel like they're under control, the player can choose between a set of dialogues and option wheel, providing different paths and ending for the player and the story. As the writing is filled with themes of mortality and choice, as you make different relationships and discover more of the city. NightCity is filled with so much detail and personality throughout the streets and characters that you'll meet, as you still feel a sense of humanity in this industrial world of cybernetics. Let's get to the story. Now, I won't spoil anything, I'll just go lightly on the experience that you'll have. Now, while there is a main story, you can choose the very beginnings and endings of that path. Now, I wouldn't stress over those options because other than the ending, there's not too many drastic changes when it comes to just regular story missions, and there's even dialogue options that are hidden from the player depending on what background they chose or how they upgrade themselves. And the customization is very limited compared to the personalities and styles of some of the locals you'll meet. And you won't just visit NightCity, as you can also travel to the outskirts of town and partner up with the Nomads as they try to take down some of the corporation's secret headquarters, as they live a worry-free life far from the city's cybernetic takeover and corporate overlords. And the player is free to choose on what path they take, what relationships they have, and how they choose to take over this city. Now, it's kind of hard to talk about this game without mentioning its past and development cycle. Now, I wouldn't hold that against any game, this one is a little different. And the vanilla version was released in December 2020 with mixed critical reception for its gameplay and bug issues. All over the internet, fans were recording their experiences as they were suffering from multiple bug issues and game-breaking glitches, sometimes affecting the story and progress of the overall narrative. But luckily, that was the game's saving grace, its story. And while the criticism all around was the same when it came to player's choice, the overall story and narrative was actually very enjoyable and extremely intriguing. And the dialogue and writing are top notch, as many characters will throw different slangs and references at you, and it feels organic and not forced on the player. Because there is a lot of hidden details and references from the tabletop game, which I don't think that will hurt against the player when it comes to figuring out the overall narrative, but it is something that I will put down below that I think would just add to an overall benefit for you. And while the skill tree is very diverse, it still requires you to add multiple slots to different attributes, so sometimes it feels like you have to do a heavy grind in combat situations to even get some of these abilities. And I wish the system was either replaced or just dialed down with the grind, because there's so many abilities that add to the universe of Cyberpunk that I think are just hidden to certain players that won't be able to see them just because they didn't add different slots to a different ability. Like you can hack into the minds of your enemies or slow down time. And while I can understand that the developer added these limitations so that players can go back, try different classes and the different options in the story, I still feel it kind of hurts the game. Because it's a grind and there's no new game plus, I don't think there's many players that are going to be willing to go back and replay the game, especially by the end. You should have enough credits that you should be able to experiment with the different options that you weren't able to use in your first playthrough. I think it's kind of safe to compare this title to the Borderlands series, as they both have their big push with the guns and the corporate overlords that take over them. And while Cyberpunk might be shiny and flashy, Borderlands just happens to have a lot more options and personality compared to this title, which I think would have really benefited if it just would have adapted some of the systems as other games have. Because I feel like this title tried focusing too hard on being ahead of its time that it forgot a lot of the things that games from its past not just created but then perfected throughout the time. Things like crowd density, a cluttered map, an active wanted system, and better quality of life options are just things that become already a staple in the game industry that I feel like not that this developer chose to ignore them, but they just kind of rolled their own path and just decided to just make a game that they thought was just going to stand out from the crowd. And now to answer the question, should you play? Honestly, I say maybe you should skip this title. While there are a lot of updates and quality of life options that have been given since an initial launch, the story is still the same. And what I find confusing is that now the developer is saying that they're going to ditch their updates when it comes to the previous gen titles and focus all on next gen. But this game was originally announced on the previous gen titles. So I wonder, was these the original intentions of the developers? How they were trying to showcase the world of Cyberpunk? Because it still doesn't play or look like it was originally showcased or advertised. No, I didn't even show the PS4 version just so I wouldn't give you a headache. And while I fell in love with NightCity, I really hope the devs fix a couple of the potholes in the middle of the street. 6 rounds and a robot blind dating cocktail. Out of 10. Hey baby, we take this to my place, huh?
Oh yes, you seem like such a kind and smart robot. I would love to introduce you to my mother.
Oh, just wait till I show you my Funko Pop collection. Oh no, next! Yo, thank you for watching the video. It's your boy Skater V. Please like and share the video. Comment down below. Did you play the game when it first came out? Have you hopped back in after this new resurgence with the anime show on Netflix? And if you're new to the channel, check out my page. I post videos every Monday and Friday and a few sprinkle in between. And help support the channel by sharing the page and subscribing to the channel if you're new. Also, I do live streams on Twitch, so if you want to catch me, head over to twitch.tv/skaterradar.com and I'll catch you in chat. To the next one, peace!